Hello, TikTok, and I'm Gerry Potter, and I've just come on to speak because I've had quite a bit of lovely compliments from people in my DMs, which is really nice, and some not so lovely compliments, which is fine. I'm not here to please everybody. Nobody can please everybody, not even the gods, especially not the gods, really. They only please their own chosen few, don't they? And it's like I say, mostly complimentary, and that's fine. And but some of the comments say things like, "I understand some of your poetry, but I don't understand others bits of your poetry. So what do you do when you don't understand poetry?" Now, I think poetry doesn't have to be understood. To be honest, I've always said, if there's a collection of words written down, if you see the words and you see that they're saying a certain thing, so for example, if the words are suggesting misery, then it's sad, and you can get something from that. You don't have to pick up every single sort of identifiable nuance that the poet might be thinking, because poets like me tend to write abstractly, and by that mean, sort of want to, want to say things in different ways, because I suppose we see things in a different way. We see things in a way which is slightly more imagey, well, hopefully more imagey, and about image, and what does image mean, and what does image suggest, or what does scent suggest, what does place suggest. And somehow, because it's not, ordinary prose, you can put it in a kind of, kind of minxy, all round itself way, so that you don't actually say, "I am sad because of." You're saying the sky is doing this, and then that's why you're sad. You're saying it through a sense of otherness, and of whatever is around you, and why ever it's around you, and whatever those things have done to you. So if there's a group of words, and the suggestion within the words is any series of emotions, then that is some of what the poem is about, but not all, by no means all, because I mean, I have a thing called CPTSD, and I didn't realize just how CPTSD my poetry is. CPTSD is a mental health condition, usually about childhood trauma, elongated childhood trauma. And I see things, and I've always seen things in almost strobing, flashing ways, sort of on-off, flashbacking ways. So I see things very quickly, speedily, crashingly, a lot. So my thinking is, in a sense, a lot about fast imaging. And my poetry is a lot about fast imaging. Now, I didn't realize until I was diagnosed about nearly 4 years ago now that there was a real correlation between how I write and how my mind actually works. And when I got diagnosed with CPTSD, I thought, oh wow, bloody hell, that makes all the sense in the world. I write in a speedy, fast way, and sometimes the imaging in my head doesn't make sense. So for me, the kind of poet I am, with the mental health status that I've got, my imaging not making sense on the page, or spoken word, because I'm much more a spoken word poet. In fact, I call my work theatre verse as opposed to poetry, but just poetry is easier to say. So the fast imaging is just very naturally how I sort of perceive art. And so I don't always have, and I've said, had a life that has a real sort of, central follow-through narrative that you can sort of pinpoint to go A, B, C, and D. It's more Z, F, Y, therefore, Y there, and there's maybe a few odd numbers and a bit of algebra in there too. So there's a sense where one's head is mixed up anyway. And for me, it's always been quite important to present that. Also, I come from I'm an actor. I don't act very much now. I don't perform very much now, only very rarely. And I come from the Everyman Theatre, and I was part of the Everyman Youth Theatre. And the Everyman Youth Theatre, we did a lot of improvisational work. Now, school didn't work for me at all. So the only seat of learning I ever really sort of embraced or became part of that actually immediately worked for me was the Everyman, the Youth Theatre, the Everyman. And that's because we did an awful lot of improvisation. Now, with a head like mine, improvisation is a really, really interesting way to just creatively explore how you feel. And we improvised certainly every 2 days in sessions. And then as we met as friends, we improvised all the time. So that was a speedy, fast, mad, kind of eccentric thought, thinking and presenting is just how my head works and how I love my work to be. So there's a so from the CPTSD to the everyman, there's a very natural disjoint in what there is, but there's also a need to present it in a way that can be, I suppose, not always wholly understood, because I'm not interested in being wholly understood. It just doesn't bother me. I'm not fazed or fussed or needing of that at all. I don't care to be if I'm not understood, so what? I'm not here to please everybody. And I think, why would you want to do that anyway? I write because it's a kind of creative compulsion, and and I found a way of doing that. But there's a sense in the whole processing of all I've just said, which is about why the work sometimes might not make all the sense in the world, and like I say, if that does happen, you don't worry. It's no big deal. It's just the work. It's just what the work does. The work is, and the work for me has to be. So there's always but I will say, I think there's always something within the framework of the languaging that I use, which is about I suppose I'm a very autobiographical storyteller, and I like to tell not just my stories. I like to tell a lot of people's stories, and I will tell those stories sort of sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Easily narratively, so that you can sort of pick up. I'm going to be doing the Bling dynasty soon, and that's just about people where I'm from, and they'll be very easy, I think, to just go along with. And then there'll be others, particularly with the small poems, the things I call the small poems, which are sort of way out there and all about. I like not remembering things, because with a head like mine, I've had to block a lot of things out. So I'm quite used to not remembering. And I quite like gaps where there's a kind of, a kind of liminal, a naturally liminal space where you can, where you kind of, I suppose, have to, pass through. And in that liminal space isn't always solidly there or easily remembered. And I'm kind of pro the gap, because I've got so many gaps. I'm used to gaps in my head of memory and of things. So there being spaces where things don't make sense or are slightly or quite absurd makes absolute creative sense to me. It's where I creatively live. So the work is about many things. One, it's about storytelling, and I think sometimes that's terribly, terribly obvious. Two, it's about restructuring storytelling. So sometimes it isn't obvious, and even I don't know. Sometimes I write and I don't know what I'm writing. I let my imagination write as well. So sometimes that's why the work is a bit bizarre. And three, there's always something in it if you look for it. And if there's nothing there for you, then that's absolutely great, and that's fine, and I'm okay with that. But it's just a few people have said, I like people like my voice, which is lovely, and they like some of the work, not all of the work. Some people don't like the work, and that's cool. I'm all right with that. But there's a sense where I think there's always something in the structuring of it, even if. So the last poem, Judy Garland, is my spirit animal, for example. There's if you look at, it's odd, it's bonkers, but if you listen, I'm saying look at it. If you listen to it, there's clues, there's links, and if you want to get any more about why I write or how I write, then my Facebook page is Gerry Potter, and I tend to warble on a great deal about that sort of stuff there. So thank you for listening, and I hope this makes some kind of sense. Okay, bye.